kind of. I mean, it's the most predictable generic movie that you have ever seen. There's nothing in this movie that counts as a surprise. I mean, as folks will know from the trailers, if they've seen it, Mike Coulter plays a criminal who is being transported on the airplane. You know, he's a murderer. He's being extradited back to the United States, or maybe to France. I can't remember. And he's just part of the crew. And when the plane crashes, you know, the question is, oh, well, is he going to be a bad guy? Is he going to try and run for it? Or is he going to be a murderer with a heart of gold and help them escape the evil militia that has captured all of the passengers? And if you can't figure out,
I can't figure that. So I have a question, Sonny. We came this close. This close to going to see The Whale, because on Thursday night, the objective for me is to stay up as late as possible to try and transition to a weekend schedule. But I looked at it and I said, I think Sonny likes this, but I think it's going to depress me. I don't need a depressing movie on Thursday night. Am I right?
Well, it is. The Whale. So The Whale stars Brendan Fraser as a very large man. The titular whale, kind of. Really, the titular whale is the whale from Moby Dick, which, for reasons the film kind of gets into. But he plays a 650-pound shut-in who is essentially trying to kill himself with food because he has tired of living. And the whole point of the film is that humanity is so decent that they don't want to. Even the people around him who are not terribly nice and have kind of given up themselves in various ways will pull it together long enough to try and help him pull out of his funk. To describe it as depressing is not wrong exactly. It is not a feel good movie. This is directed by Darren Aronofsky, who is the guy who made Requiem for a Dream, Black Swan, Noah, and other movies in that vein. This movie's caused a lot of controversy. A lot of people, say it's fat phobic. People are too mean to the main character. He is too disgusting and too slovenly to be, a representative of fat America. And that is just, it's the most blinkered possible way of looking at this film, which again is about, a decent man who has kind of given up trying to figure out what is good and best in life. To describe it as depressing is not wrong.
How about sad? Is it a sad movie? That's what I meant.
It is a moment. It is a movie with moments of sadness. I'll put it that way. I mean,
will it increase people's?
Intended as a sad movie, I don't think. I think it is intended as more of a look at the innate decency of humanity sort of.
Well, that's it. Will it increase the compassion that the ordinary viewer has for people that might be morbidly obese as they wait in line at the airport and they worry about who they're going to sit next to on the plane?
Well, no, you would never want to sit next to the whale from The Whale. That would be miserable. But luckily he never leaves his house, so it's not really a problem. Look, I give that movie a very soft recommend. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I don't think it's Brendan Fraser's probably going to win a Best Actor trophy for it because everyone is loving the Brendan Fraser renaissance. Everyone likes to see him back in movies and stuff. He'd been away for a while. So if you want to see the movie that will win Best Actor at the Oscars, that's as good a reason as any to go see it.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Bunch. Next week, maybe we can talk about Living, and maybe Living will have actually gotten a release that I can go out and see. Did you ever see, by the way, Cameron Crowe's Remember My Name about David Crosby?
No, I'd meant to. Was it good?
It's very good because it's poignant that he's a troubadour and he keeps working. I imagine he played a concert before he slipped into a coma. He's an old broken down rock and roller talking about how he survived heroin, getting thrown out of every band, and Jackson Browne picking him up from the vomit encrusted floor. It's Cameron Crowe. He knows music.
Yeah. It was sad to see that David Crosby had died. Crosby still a Nash good fan.
Yeah, and it's a fine movie if you're looking for something this weekend. Sonny Bunch, thank you. Follow him at Sonny Bunch on Twitter. Across the Movie Aisle is one of his two podcasts. The other is The Bulwark Goes to the Movie. Both of those very worth listening if you love movies and getting deep in. Let me go back to a couple more headlines. Ron DeSantis is pushing education in Florida much further to the right, according to Philip Bump in the Washington Post. I do not agree with that. I think Ron DeSantis is doing the right thing in Florida, which is to make parents in charge. There is some controversy over an alleged action banning African American history courses as being contrary to state law. I haven't read into that. I don't know that yet. African American AP courses are offered everywhere, so I don't really know what that's about. So I have to look into that. If it's teaching African American history to the exclusion of American history, I would have a problem with that. But I often wonder, why don't they just teach African American history part of American history and teach American history for 2 years so we don't have a historically illiterate cohort coming up? Because American history is kind of interesting. It's why we are in the 13th week in the third hour today of the history of the English-speaking people, which is broader than American history, but which consumes and includes all of American history. It's fascinating stuff, and it can be made to be interesting. Great history teachers are great history teachers. They tell stories. That's what Ken Burns used to say. There's a story in history. You've just got to focus on the story.
You know, some stories just don't go away, and so some poems have to be repeated, or the theme at least has to be repeated. Since our country was established and the bureaucrats got rolling, lots of things have gone a-missin'. Even red-hot stoves got stolen. There were forgers, there were swindlers, there were fraudsters, there were bribers, there were gold thieves, there were bold thieves, and a surplus of imbibers. Elections were disputed, and appointees were maligned. Senators indicted, representatives resigned. In the words of Willie Sutton, it is not surprising that folks like these are drawn to government. That's where the money's at. Those who live by their corruption, somewhat like the wonks and smarties, have been equally distributed between the major parties. And if you read the history of the times when honor held, those who marred the institutions were both censored and expelled. Now, regarding current scandals, if you have to know the truth, I am drawn to ask the questions from the scandals of my youth. So I will pose the question, though I think I may regret it. What did Joe forget, and when did he forget? Yes, between the warring factions, I would like to call a truce, but I'm told that in the law that ignorance is no excuse. So let's stand erect for rectitude, because the country needs us, and follow with attention to where the Corvette leads us. It's a Scandal, part 2.
I love the line, what did Joe Biden forget, and when did Joe Biden forget it? That's going to go down in maybe the Tarzana Joe Hall of Fame. It's Hugh Hewitt. David Crosby's gone to the Angels, but not his music. We'll play that always. Joined now by State Senator Matt Dolan. Senator Dolan hails from Ohio, and he ran for the United States Senate in 2022 in the GOP primary. Came up runner-up to J.D. Vance, immediately threw in with J.D. Vance, helped J.D. Vance get elected. And now he's already declared he's going to run against Sherrod Brown, who's been a thorn in my side for a long time. Matt Dolan, welcome back to the program, Senator. Good to have you.
Thanks, Hugh. Thanks for having me on.
Have you declared officially?
I have. I declared this week, and your setup was right. As we got J.D. Vance into the Senate, hoping that he would be serving in a majority. But the rest of the nation, when the Republicans put up candidates that looked to the past, we lost our opportunity to take the majority in the Senate, and that's a problem. And so now to get it, we got to beat the likes of Sherrod Brown, and that's why I'm in, to state my case, to show that I'm somebody who can actually get something done. I have conservative results, and Sherrod Brown wants to take our state and our country to the left. And we only have to look at his own words for that to proven to be true.
I think we will come back to Sheridan and the left in a moment. First, we got to do the obligatory. What do you think of Jim Schwartz as the new defensive coordinator of the Browns?
So I think I'm excited about it because Jim Schwartz's success has always been when he's been a defensive coordinator.
Yep.
So I think that's what the Browns need. I mean, I want to see the Browns playing in January like the Bengals have been playing in January the last 2 years.
Yeah, there's never been a playoff game at First Energy. I just remind people we've never hosted a playoff game at First Energy. However, as part of the Dolan family that owns the Guardians, I do want to compliment you on bringing in Josh Bell. You can give your regards to your brother, who does, I think, more day-to-day management than you do. But that's a big deal. The Guards are pitchers and catchers report on February 17th. Can you find a way to have a campaign event in Arizona?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the time of year where you get excited about it. This year we get real baseball right away. We get the World Baseball Classic. So not only will we have spring training games going on, but we'll have those games going on. So we're gonna get baseball going up real quick here.
Now let's get back to the campaign.
Josh Bell is going to be a nice sign.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be great. Someone who can hit for power in the middle of the lineup. Senator, would you give people your brief bio on how you end up being one of the key players in the Ohio State Senate and why you want to be the senator from Ohio in the United States Senate?
Sure, thank you. Well, most importantly, I'm happily married to Jessica, and we have Sam and Maddox as our kids. But I've been a lawyer for 32 years. Family's been involved in many businesses. Obviously, one is the Guardians, which I do not have a day-to-day responsibility for, but other businesses I did. And I have the public servant bug. So I've served in the Ohio House for 5 years, and then went back to the private sector, and now I'm serving 6 years, my 6th year in the Ohio Senate. But in each of those service times, I've been named the finance chair for Ohio, both in the House and the Senate, which is responsible for the fiscal policy of the state. And I'm proud to say that in my time, we've lowered taxes, we've reduced regulations, we've expanded school choice, we've been able to protect our natural resources, all doing with a balanced budget. And that's the sort of discipline that I want to bring to Washington. We need to get back to fiscal policy that, funds government to the level it needs to be funded, but most importantly, returns money back to the individual. And let's not go from debt crisis to debt crisis. Let's actually get fiscal policy in place that runs the government, doesn't put us on the brink of bankruptcy or default, and we get things done. We had a chance to do that. If we had the majority in the Senate, I'm confident we would put something on the governor or the president's desk that would be fiscal discipline. We lost the Senate. We got to get it back.
Matt Dolan, I want to pause there. A lot of the networks are negotiating with the RNC to run debates in the 2024 presidential campaign. I said earlier today, unless they cover this debt limit story fairly, I would not give them a debate. The president told the Hill, and he's told everyone, he's not going to negotiate with the Republicans over raising the debt limit of $31 trillion. We went from a $6 trillion debt limit, less than that actually, in the year 2000 to $31 trillion. The interest rate on it is staggering. As the finance guy in Ohio, can you imagine what 1/50th or 1/20th of the national debt on Ohioans would mean? It would be a shipwreck. What do you think the Republicans ought to say to the president when he says, I'm not going to negotiate with you on the debt limit?
Well, I don't. I mean, that can't be the final answer. What I'm hoping is going to happen, and I think it's going to happen in the Republican-led House, is they're actually going to have hearings. They're going to have a process, and they're going to put a bill together that would demonstrate how we're going to stop the spending of money. And so it's not President Biden just saying, I'm not negotiating over the debt crisis because we can't throw it in default. It's saying, no, Mr. President, here is the fiscal policy of the United States of America that's going to get our budget under control and our spending under control. That's what needs to be done. And when we don't provide an alternative, and it's just whether we're going to default or we're not going to default, what happens the last 24 hours in the middle of the night, they strike some deal and it gets extended, and whatever deal we cut is meaningless in terms of the overall spending of our country. So this is our opportunity to put forth to the president a budget. You ask what would it be like in Ohio? Well, we have to do that. We have to balance our budget. We can ultimately get there in the federal government, but let's put a spending budget in place. So that's what we're talking about. So America gets to see, well, wait a second, that makes sense, Mr. President. Why aren't we controlling our spending? If we have to increase our debt limit every single time, that means obviously we're spending more than our credit card is able to afford. Let's curb it back. We got to give alternatives.
And I would love to see a network put you and Sherrod Brown. You're the declared candidate. There is no other declared candidate yet. The debt limit debate is right now. I would like to see Sherrod Brown opposite of Matt Dolan talking about the debt limit in a way that would frame the 2024 race in a very, very informative fashion. I doubt we'll see that. I wouldn't give any debates to any network that doesn't do something like that. Senator Dolan, let's talk about debates. The RNC is on the front page of the New York Times. I moderated a debate in which the 6 Republicans sat down, you among them, JD among them. I thought it was very productive. It was not crazy. There were 1,500 people there. It was very effective. You went on and you debated again and again and again. What's your position on if and when other people jump in the race against you for the Senate nomination? Will you sit down with them and do it again like you did in 24 and 22?
Yeah, I mean, every campaign is different. So, I'm always looking to have a meaningful, substantive conversation with the voters of Ohio. When and how and where all that will happen, we'll have plenty of time for that. But my job right now is to make sure people understand, as Republicans, that we've got to get the majority back. And to do that, you have to beat Sherrod Brown. And to beat Sherrod Brown, you better put somebody up on the Republican side like me, who's looking to the future and not running a campaign of grievances, who has a conservative record of results that I can compare to Sherrod Brown's record of a liberal agenda, and he wants to push us more to the left. I mean,
and there's no better place to talk about the future than schools. And Sherrod Brown is a tool of the school teachers unions. There is a scandal in my home state now, Virginia. I'm originally from Ohio, but in Northern Virginia right now, we've discovered that the public school bureaucracy have been hiding test results from excellent students. In Florida, Governor DeSantis is fighting over education. Doug Ducey has left the Arizona governorship with the greatest school choice bill in America, fashioned off the West Virginia and the Florida programs. It's going to be adopted by Iowa this year. What's your position on the backpack bill, which I think is coming down the pike in Ohio?
Well, backpack bill, just for your audience, means providing more school choice for Ohioans, and that's what I believe in. The mechanics of the backpack bill may not be ready, but the idea that in Ohio we want to give every child the ability to choose their path for education, their family choice, that's where we need to go. I mean, we're going to fund public schools, but they better get their act together. They better start focusing on math, reading, science, the basics of education to prepare our kids for tomorrow's economy. This social agenda that's creeping its way into the public schools is going to be the destruction of the public schools. So, they're only adding to their own demise.
Now, Senator, when you say the mechanics aren't ready, what do you mean? Because I'm very sensitive to delay. Every year that school choice expansion is delayed is another year of lost students. So I think it's urgent that we get this done.
And so do I. What we're doing, when we dramatically expanded school choice last time, the backpack bill is basically saying we're going to provide money to every single student, and then they choose where they want to go.
Right. That's the Arizona model. Yeah.
Right. Fiscally, we have to how does that match up with the spending we're going to do for public schools? Are we going to have a corresponding dollar for dollar discount? And I'm just speaking reality here, Hugh. That's not going to happen. When the legislators see that their local public school is going to get significantly less money, there's going to be, whether it's public or private, there's going to be people coming into my office saying, we can't do that. We can't do that. But what we can do is recognize where we can incrementally expand choice so that we are providing the opportunity initially for a number of folks. One is those students, irrespective of income, who are in failing school districts, that those children don't have to be held hostage by that. They can go to a different school. They have the opportunity to go. The second is we don't want somebody who's making school choices because of their income decision. So we want people to have the ability to choose. That financially they can't make a choice. We want to help them.
Senator, in Arizona, it's $6,000.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
In Arizona, it's $6,000 follows the student. That's not near what they pay a student to go to a public school, but it's enough to get a kid into a Catholic school, for example. And you know the value of that. There are just some parents who cannot afford $6,000 a year. I don't think it should be hard to get at least a minimum grant for every student who wants it through in that range. You get the last minute, Senator.
Well, but the point is that if we don't get Republicans in Washington, we're not going to have the flexibility and the creativity and the willpower to do what states are doing. So if we keep sending Sherrod Brown back to Washington, we're going to have same bureaucracy. So what I'm saying is, we'll work it out in Ohio, but I want to go to the United States Senate to bring that same ability and creativity in solving problems that we are doing here in Ohio.
Keep coming back, keep spreading the word, and once debates start, if they start, call me up. I'll come anytime, anywhere to moderate a Matt Dolan and somebody else debate, because it's important that Ohio go red in 2024. So important. Thank you, Senator. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm Hugh. Welcome back, America. Sarah Westwood covers everything in Washington for the Washington Examiner. I would not be surprised to see her on the stage for the 2024 Republican presidential debates that are the front page story of the New York Times today, because she's fair. She is one of the few people who covered the Right to Life March this year. Good morning, Sarah. Will you be out on the street today seeing what's going on with the 49th annual Right to Life March?
Good morning. I will not, but some of my colleagues will be covering it today. So it's a very exciting day in Washington. A lot going on.
I liked your piece on the divisions within the pro-life movement, which I think was subtle and nuanced and well done. Two questions I want to get to. First of all, the Secret Service logs, the story that you ran yesterday. I did not know that those existed until I read your story. I thought they were saying they didn't exist. Would you explain to people why the Secret Service logs may be the key to GarageGate and the seriousness of it?
Sure. So one of the top questions that House Republicans have is who had access to the classified information that was stored at the Wilmington House. And the White House maintains a visitor's log for who goes to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, but they've told reporters that they keep no logs of who visits, goes in and out of the Wilmington House. So House Republicans are sort of turning their attention now to the Secret Service, which has to vet anyone that comes in close proximity with the president. They have to perform a background check. It really depends on the nature of the meeting. So they might be incomplete visitors logs, but they do have a record generally of who's come in and out of the Wilmington House. And they've also indicated that they might be willing to work with Congress if they send a subpoena. So that will be potentially one avenue for Republicans to get around some of the stonewalling we're likely to see from the Justice Department and the National Archives.
Sarah, I have not heard anyone yet ask the question about the McLean House that the Bidens rented from 2017 to 2020. And where was it packed up? Where did its contents go? Has the president or anybody said they all went to the White House? They all went to because the Secret Service didn't protect Wilmington and Bethesda until he got elected president. That's it. There are 4 years there where anybody can come into the garage who wants to take a look at the Camaro or whatever, the Corvette that he drives, right?
Right. There's a lot of questions about that. How many times were the records that were found in the garage in Wilmington moved, before they were finally discovered through this whole process? So obviously, they might not have taken a straight line from the vice president's office right to Wilmington. There's a number of other places they could have gone beforehand. Same with the records that are still at the Penn Biden Center. And the clearing process for that office never even finished. It was sort of frozen in time because of that discovery of the documents. No one said, have they gone back to the Penn Biden Center and continued searching those closets and those desks at that office? So there's a lot of additional places where classified documents could be and a lot of unanswered questions about how thorough these searches have been.
Sarah Westwood, there is a story in the Hill today that the president's not going to negotiate with the Republicans over the debt limit. That's an early declaration of chicken. We're going to play a game of chicken. Are the Republicans, do they have their act together to announce their demands and to make sure that the American people know they're not unreasonable?
Yeah, that's the thing that the Democrats, I think, don't realize that they're doing. They're giving Republicans time to get their act together and to settle on a sort of consensus. Because right now there is not, one set of demands from Republicans. You have some, like Congressman Andy Biggs, who says he's not going to vote for the to raise the debt ceiling under any circumstances. Chip Roy wants to cap fiscal year 2024 spending levels at fiscal year 2022 spending levels, which seems like a direction that the Republicans might take. But you even have, swing district moderates like Brian Fitzpatrick in Pennsylvania saying that no negotiating is not an option. There will be some negotiating about some sort of spending cuts, whether that's a balanced budget act, whether that's cuts in non-defense areas to spending, that's unclear. But the Democrats are giving Republicans the time they need by refusing to send someone to negotiate. But Republicans are united on one key thing, which is that they are going to force negotiations to happen.
And they've got to get that out there. And the Hill is in the first piece I've seen yet. Now, let me ask about the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party Chairman Gallagher and on the weaponization of the Government Committee led by Congressman Jordan. Have any other announcements come yet? I can't find them, but you'll know them first if they have.
Announcements in terms of
who's on it.
Oh, not really. Those committees haven't really gotten underway yet. I think, what an investigation that might have reasonably come into the weaponization of government's purview is being conducted under the larger judiciary about how the Justice Department handled the Biden document case. So far, they haven't really gotten going, but it's early days. We could see some action soon.
It's been 2 weeks, and the speaker's got to get moving on this, particularly China and the Intel Committee flip-flop. So I think it's going to go to a +2 Republican. Do we know who got added to Intel yet? Was that announced?
I don't think so, but they are starting to fill out some of the subcommittees. We know that there are some Freedom Caucus members on the Oversight Committee now, for example, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, people who would be more aggressive in doing the congressional investigations than before when you saw that committee made up of more moderates. So we are starting to see what kind of deals were cut by McCarthy to get this speakership based on the makeup of some of these, what you'd call A committees.
The A committees in terms of visibility are China and weaponization, and we haven't seen that yet. So I'll be watching Sarah Westwood's byline. Follow her on Twitter at Sarah C. Westwood. Sarah, thank you for joining me.